Starting. Well, they're raising the cake. Hello.
Hey,
Yeah.
Hello.
It's
hello.
hello. It's off to work. We go. Well, we already did that. But anyway,
We
uh
welcome all of our
you're welcome.
friends, whether free or incarcerated, to our program.
Thank you.
Welcome, everyone.
Welcome. It's been a little while. So happy August 2023. This year is moving with or without you. So the question is, what are you going to do about it? So anyway, what
Uh,
we're going to do is share information. That was rhetorical, Maurice, to them.
well, I had answers.
Say otherwise I would have prefaced it by saying, Maurice, what do you think? I didn't
Go
do
on
that.
a,
In the absence
go
of
on a
that,
rampage.
so in the absence of that, I'm not talking to you. I'm not talking to you. So anyway, I will cede the first topic to my learned colleagues, Sandra, Maurice, Sandra,
Was that learned or learned? I wasn't sure.
or live it, live it. Okay,
All right.
Maurice, why don't you go? What's the
All
topic?
right. I want to talk
What say
about,
you? What say you?
well, I want to talk about the recent assassination of Ecuadorian presidential candidate Fernando Villavicencio, who was elected to the National Assembly in 2021. He belonged to the Movimiento Construye, and he was a former trade unionist for Petro Ecuadoriano, the oil company owned by the government. He was a journalist. He was a legislator. He was a husband and the father of three, born on October 11th, 1963, in Alausi
Wow.
Canton in Chimborazo province in Ecuador. He was the chair of the Commission for Oversight and Political Control, and he dedicated his life as a humanitarian, as an activist, as a politician, and as an aspirant for the presidency to replace Guillermo Lasso in a
Mm.
war um, against organized crime and drug trafficking. He was courageous, having been threatened many times before by the gang called Los Lobos, which was a branch of Los Choneros, which is affiliated with Mexico's Sinaloa cartel, the new Jalisco generation. Uh,
Wow.
at the time of his assassination, where his assailants pumped several bullets into his head as he was leaving an event at a high school in the capital of Quito. Nine other individuals were wounded. One of the suspects succumbed to his wounds, and they have since arrested at least six Colombians.
Colombians.
Yes, and in fact, if you recall, a couple years ago, Colombians were arrested for the assassination of the then president of Haiti. So it looks like Colombia is making a name for itself, not just in terms of cocaine and rumba, but also in terms of assassinating presidents and presidential candidates in other countries. They're
That's
kind of like the,
devastating.
yeah, yeah, and I've been reading the coverage in the Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, New York
Mhm.
Times, and a few other outlets. And he was on all around Ecuadorian humanitarian and patriot. He was even critical of the Chinese loans for large hydroelectric projects because he didn't think that they could ever pay those back and that Beijing was just going to exploit his country,
Hmm.
rendering it incapable of paying off loans and being beholden to basically this Asiatic imperialist communist power.
Hmm.
He wasn't afraid to criticize the existing government, which he viewed as being insufficiently protective of the rights of ordinary Ecuadorians. And he wrote books about government corruption, including one that was directed against a former president, Rafael Correa, who was convicted in 2020 of corruption in absentia. Um, and Villa Vicencio for a time, had even sought and received political asylum in neighboring Peru because of threats against his life from both the government and cartels. So he was not somebody who uh, sucked up
Was
to
easily intimidated.
power. Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
So
yeah, it's
rest in peace.
unfortunate. Yeah, it's unfortunate. Obviously he made a lot of enemies. Man, no bodyguards, pissing off all these people and you don't have any bodyguards, or did he? Because several people got wounded and Colombians were captured and one dead. So obviously there was some police presence or some presence to get them,
Mhm.
right?
Apparently, the suspect that died was shot and detained by authorities at the scene, but it was obvious that it wasn't sufficient security. But there seems to be a pattern because um, uh, mayors in neighboring communities had been killed. Um, in fact, he said that if he were elected, he would go after corrupt politicians as well as the criminal gangs, and he pledged to build a high security prison in the Amazon to deal with the leaders of organized crime.
Hmm.
And
Man, that
yeah,
that is horrible because, unfortunately, anyone that stands against all of these people that are trying to, it's almost like a cancer in a society.
yeah,
And when somebody's trying to do something good for the community, for people, their target. And you never know in reality who's your enemy, because
that's
it could
true.
be even internal. It could be within the same people that you're with.
That's
You
right.
don't know how
Yeah.
much how much money there it's involved in order to get them killed. So and that's happening.
Yeah.
El Salvador, I live that, and it's
Well, that's
it's
right.
it's
That's right.
horrible. Is it live
You
in
know.
fear and that you cannot even talk. And remember, in our countries, we don't have the freedom of speech that we have here in this wonderful country.
Yeah.
There, you never know who your enemy is. So unfortunately,
Yeah.
I mean, I send my condolences to our brothers and sisters in Ecuador for the loss of a person that it appears that had a good heart and good was fighting for the people, for the community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, unfortunately, you know, it's probably, I know they say hindsight 2020, but based on all the other assassinations over the last decade, several decades, and just the last year or two or five, it's best possibly not to lay out your entire roadmap, uh, you know, given the volatility of what's going on in these countries. And especially with the level of threats, to give them your whole blueprint maybe uh, may not be the best option with these folks until you can solidify some level or a high level of protection and foresight. And, I think, it's unfortunate, but the irony is he had to say enough to get elected. Why elect me? Well, I'm going to stop crime and what have you. But
Mhm.
unfortunately, when you're dealing with situations like that, you know, um, perhaps it's best another strategy. That's all I'm saying.
But
Um,
it's difficult though because
yeah,
um unlike American presidential candidates that could campaign from their basement during COVID, he
Mhm.
was facing you know uh seven other uh actually eight other candidates seeking to
right,
replace the current president Guillermo
right.
Lasso, and you have to get out there and
Right.
communicate your message
What are the
because
other
otherwise,
messages? Yeah, I'm not familiar with the other candidates, so I was wondering what messages were the others given? Was it kind of watered down?
Yeah, and in fact, I suspect there'll be even less
Well, after this is going to be less.
extroverted. Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's
So
really a show of force. Because basically, those Lobos, which took credit for it. I mean, they're not hiding. They say, well, "Yeah, we killed him. We'll kill you too." And
Mhm.
unfortunately, the Ecuadorian government is so corrupt and weak, and compromised that they can't really protect anybody. Um, and in fact, some of Villa Vicencio's final words were these. I'm reading it from the uh,
Newspaper.
newspaper here. Here I am showing my face. I'm not scared of them. And there was video from one of his recent campaign events posted by his official account, which showed him saying he would never wear a bulletproof vest. You know,
Oh,
and
that's too bad.
yeah, there's a certain bravado in that, and some of it may not be entirely pragmatic, but I think you have to recognize the courage in not veiling his words. He wasn't speaking in code language about gangs and government vice. He
Mhm.
told it as it was. He named names. He was speaking at the time of his assassination. Well, shortly thereafter, because he was leaving a high school where he was talking to young people about
Wow.
their need to be involved
so
and to
he
care
just
about their
called out.
country.
He called out the existing government, probably the former government, and all these
Mhm.
other folks, and obviously he had a posse because all these other people got shot too. So uh, and then they captured one on the scene, and then others afterwards. So obviously there's still some brave souls there too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
think,
definitely
but
he's
I
not
think
alone. He's not
he's
alone.
not alone. And see what happens is you need to develop a coalition or a movement consisting of like-minded souls because
Mhm.
they can pick you off one at a time, but if there's enough of you that exist,
Exactly.
they can't slaughter all of you.
Mhm.
It's
Right.
like the Hydra in Greek mythology that Hercules was battling during his 12 labors. Like he discovered that if you cut off the head of the Hydra, two more will grow.
That's why you should be prepared to cut at least two of them off and then burn them up.
Yeah, yeah. Eventually, that's what Hercules
And
did.
and
He
and and
cauterized the
and don't
necks and the
tell them and
heads.
don't tell them that you're coming either.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So
Just be by
that's
the time you say it, it's
That's unfortunate.
they're already on fire. So yeah, it is. And so
yeah.
it's gonna take some more brave souls and to do something about it. And it's like Colombia, should we say what it same name as cocaine in as far as what it's known for.
Well, and so much of it though, whether you're talking about Colombia, which is to the north of Ecuador, or Peru, which is to
Right.
the south,
Mhm.
is this multi-billion dollar cocaine trafficking industry,
Yeah.
which is actually fed by the appetites of addicts and drug lords in North America and Western Europe and Britain.
Mhm.
So if nobody wanted it, there'd be no
I think
market
that
for it.
well, they already got folks in all over the world kind of hooked on it by introducing it. But I saw something in Bloomberg today. Actually, it's timely, this conversation.
Mhm.
The police confiscated today $660 million worth of cocaine
Wow.
that originated from Ecuador through through Panama. And
Okay.
it was 17,000 pounds of cocaine, crack coke, well, not crack, but cocaine, 17,000 pounds worth of street value of 660 million. They captured it in Panama coming from Ecuador. Is
Okay.
Wow.
See, that's
so
the issue there. That's
so
right on point.
so
Yes.
everybody on board that ship is in jail, probably going to be in prison now, hopefully. And so That's a lot of that's over $500 million value
Can you
of
imagine
cocaine.
that?
So how many people will be alive because of that?
Yes, yes.
And so so that's
that was good.
that's one shipment. $500
Yeah.
million, one shipment. Can you imagine?
The ones that have been caught,
Yeah.
you
That's
know?
my point. Yeah, that's my
And
point.
there's-
There's only one
And there's
shipment.
so much though that is penetrating international borders and coming across uh, uh, probably both the Atlantic, the Pacific, and the Gulf of Mexico. That isn't being stopped because there's so much of it.
Well, it's just probably every day is probably that level coming through. So to go
Yeah.
worldwide and you have all these countries and what have you. But think about it. It's only how many ways things can travel. It's airplane and ship if it's international. Those are only two ways. Airplane and ships. Only I imagine we could rule out submarines, but who knows? So
Well,
Train.
something
Train.
years
no,
ago.
I'm talking about international.
Well, years
International.
ago.
But train too if it's contiguous, yes.
Well, listen. Years ago, Escobar had submarines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if
Yeah.
you're making enough money, you can have submarines constructed. And in fact, it's been decades um, uh, in the making where you see tunnels from Mexico into the United
Right.
States. Linking the northern Mexican states to San Diego and other American metropolitan areas.
Yeah.
And you got mules, so you got people.
I was referring outside of the United States primarily, as far as the mostly international travel. Obviously, part of the Americas is South America and Central America, so you can go just drive a truck straight through.
Even tunnels. Remember that they have constructed tunnels.
They have tunnels where you could drive trucks
right
through them.
Yeah. So
and then you have the super highway, remember, that they were developing from Mexico through United States to Canada, thoroughfares and things of that nature. But you know what? I suspect. Let's go back to submarine. I want to play around with that for a moment. Let's just rhetorically speaking, how many submarine builders? I mean, probably on this hand in the world, and don't think they don't know who's building them. Like, okay, who's building them? Who's buying them? How many people are going to be buying submarines or buying 747 airplanes? So I think most of these governments, they know. Come on, you got a 747 full of crack cocaine, cocaine, and whatever. They know, in my opinion. They know.
Yeah.
It's like 10 trucks are going into one airplane, really, with 2 people on it. Come on.
Yeah.
A train.
Yeah.
Train.
No.
Okay, it's somebody's train that has 20 boxcars. What do you think is in there? Really? Gluten-free, right? Gluten-free cocaine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gluten-free.
Yeah. They know.
Yeah.
They know. I think people are being paid off, is what it is.
That's
exactly.
That's what got him assassinated, because he was speaking that truth to power.
Yeah.
Yeah. And was willing to do something about it.
Yeah. Because probably many of his peers had counseled him against his vociferous public declamations against the gangsters and the bureaucrats and the compromised police officers and soldiers that were either complicit directly or looking away because they didn't want to risk assassination themselves, or ostracism, or perhaps even some payouts and bribes. So, when you know that people are out to get you, that they're people who are making these threats, they're not doing it idly. It's not like, I'm just blowing smoke. I'm just talking smack. These are serious people.
And Yeah,
And
some of them willing to die over it. So,
yeah, and in this particular instance, with via Vicencio's assassination, the Colombians that were involved with it even threw a grenade. It just happened to not detonate. So they were planning during
Man,
to kill more people.
wow.
So the current president has declared 3 days of mourning and a national state of emergency, and 3 of the 8 candidates have announced that they are suspending their campaigns. But the first round is going forward on August 20th, which is next
Yeah, next week.
Sunday after this one.
Yes.
So
yeah.
rest in
Well,
peace.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
won't be traveling to those countries anytime soon. So anyway,
Yeah.
well, it's unfortunate though.
Yeah.
But on a different note, I was also watching today was the first day of tourism in outer space with Virgin Galactic. They had a former Olympian, a canoe, whatever you call it, rower, and then and a daughter and mother, a 46-year-old woman and her 18-year-old daughter, and
Wow.
Interesting.
and the gentleman that was on there, the sole gentleman, he at the time, 18 years ago, paid $200,000 for this ticket that's worth 450,000 now. So
Wow.
so he waited 18 years for this since 2000. What is that? 5 or something like that.
Wow.
So
Wow.
he's 80 years old too. 80 years
That's
old.
amazing.
82 years. So he was 62 when he first bought the $200,000 ticket. And
200,000
That's
back
amazing.
then.
back then, now it's 450,000, and I saw it on Bloomberg.
Man.
They had video of them going up. And they were inside the cockpit. So apparently with Virgin Galactic, this is how they do it. It takes 2 pilots to make it work, and they don't fly the rocket from the ground. It doesn't come from the ground. How
Where
does
does it come from?
say you? It's on the belly of the plane. The rocket ship, the spacecraft is under the plane, under the belly of the plane. Once it reaches 50,000 feet, it
launches.
launches it to go another 50 miles.
Wow.
And so with its own propulsion. And then it lands like a glider onto the ground.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
Wow.
So you guys ready to do it? Forget the 450,000 because they do lotteries too. You may be fortunate if you get the lottery seat. So he's doing lotteries. So would you attempt it? And if you were successful, would you actually get on? Obviously, if you paid 450,000,
yes.
But would you do it?
Yes.
Sandra, would you?
I'm not that brave. I will have to think about it.
Hey, son, didn't you want to skydive?
And bungee jumping on it?
Yes, I do want to do that.
Maurice made a brilliant point, because if you're willing to jump out of a plane with one parachute, you're not willing to go up in a spacecraft.
But it's not on a spacecraft that it can blow up.
There's a parachute that could not open. How's that?
Well, but there's more experience with that. There's a lot of people that have been doing it in here, especially here where we live. You see it every Sunday.
We've been going to space since 1960, 1961 or whatever it is, Maurice.
Well, I'm more comfortable with the sky.
Well, something actually even longer, because because before the success of Apollo 11, NASA mission, which resulted in men literally walking on the surface of our closest celestial neighbor, the moon, human beings had been going into space.
Yeah, they've been going to space.
In fact, for a decade prior to that, because you count the Soviet cosmonaut program.
So they went first in space, didn't they?
Yeah. And then you got John Glenn and others who are circled the planet.
Yeah. So I'm talking before the moon, just in space. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, a further argument that I was making earlier this week at work in a similar discussion with colleagues is that space exploration is really just an extension of aviation. And that's been happening since the Wright brothers in 1903. So we're actually well within a century of powered flight.
Really?
Yeah, when you think about it, airplanes,
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Yeah, a
spacecraft,
spacecraft is a souped up airplane.
modules. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in fact, you want to go even further, you can talk about hot air balloons because that's a form of powered flight. Um, and you know, and in fact, I was watching C-SPAN on Sunday, and they were interviewing the author of this book about um, Zeppelins developed by the British Empire.
Mm.
And typically, you know, what distinguishes a Zeppelin from other airships is that it has a steel skeleton and it has space to allow bags of hydrogen. That's what gives Zeppelins the lift. And, you know, in this particular book, it's one that, you know, exploded, killing many people. But the point of it is, you know, we've been doing this for some time. And in fact, we've been more successful in going up than going down. And by down, I'm talking about deep ocean submersibles and submarines.
Right.
So we've actually been, in fact, to be honest, if it weren't for governmental mismanagement and corruption and waste, maybe not Ecuadorian and Peruvian and Colombian level, but we would already have lunar and Martian colonies. Because think about it. 1969, we're walking on the moon. What have we done since then? Because so much of it is wasted. We should be living in a Star Trek dream right now, minus Klingons and Vulcans
So
and Romulans.
would you live on what we call it,
A colony.
a colony, as I was looking, would you, either one of you, live on a colony on the moon?
If I had amenities like you know, cable television, indoor plumbing, hot water, and food, yeah.
Sandra, you're staying quiet on this one.
Well, what about you? You're throwing the question at us. What about you? What do you stand on the in going flying and also living? What's your
Okay.
stay? Yeah.
Okay. Well, I've been the interviewer and you guys allowed it.
That's why I'm taking over.
Okay.
Yeah. There you go.
So
this is democracy.
So let me answer your questions. Number one, concerning the what I get in Virgin Galactic or SpaceX or any other spacecraft going to anywhere in outer space. Hell no, number one.
Okay.
Number two, would I live on some colony or some satellite planet or number two? Hell no, number two. And I'm sure
I guess that says it.
And how about deep space where you're in some cryo state where it would be 10 years later, 5-10 years? Hell no, 3. Okay.
Well, I wasn't even saying that necessarily. I'm talking about like immediate solar system environment, because when you're putting some kind of cryostasis, that is really generation ships in which the journey one way will take a minimum of years, if not centuries.
I'm still raising the question, and it's still space related. So I didn't ask you guys the third one. Would you go in a cryo state to colonize or just explore deep space like Star Trek crew?
I'm more hesitant about that because I'm just talking about the moon and Mars and space stations. I'm not talking about.
I expanded the interview questions. Okay. So
you know,
I mean,
to me, if I will be in my younger years, I would take anything. I will do it, and no right now, in my later years, in my younger years that I am right now, I think that I'm more cautious, and I will give that opportunity to other people that are willing to go. At this point, I will prefer to stay with my young kids and enjoy them while I can, instead of me going, away. That will be my answer to that. I
Yeah,
think that I will be
yeah.
more conservative on that. As far as the skydiving, when you are taking as a trainee, you never go alone. You have to go
Mhm.
with a trainer. So that's the reason why I'm doing it, is because you go with the trainer on your back, and they're the ones that are holding, they're the ones that
Yeah.
guide you where to land. Now, if I'm an expert, that's different. But at this point,
I'm
that's why.
still hesitant. I'm still hesitant even with that because you're still jumping out at 10,000 feet, and the trainer will die with you. That's all.
But
Yeah,
you know,
but he
something.
has experience on that.
But you know
And
something.
it's
I'm going
uh-huh.
to speak in support of skydiving as a legitimate
No, it's legitimate.
enterprise,
It's
hobby,
legitimate.
and
Uh-huh.
avocation. And something. And I was citing history in terms of aviation and space
Right.
exploration, but skydiving certainly has
Mhm.
decades of action behind it. It's been done internationally. It's been done
Mhm.
Mhm.
in times of war,
Well, yeah, the
as well as
parachuters. Yeah, the parachuter troops. Yeah.
yeah. And in fact, wars have been won
But let me
because of
tell you,
paratroopers.
my exception to that is, I have exceptions for all of them. The
Uh-huh.
exception is if we're in war and we're about to be taken over by some evil world power, I will get in a plane, jump out with my machine gun going, ah!
But you know something?
I will do
Before
that.
you do it,
I will do that. Yeah.
in terms of jumping out with a machine gun, like you're Rambo or Schwarzenegger, is you have to train to do it, which means you
I
have to
know
do
you.
it at a
Yeah.
time. You have to practice and
No,
rehearse it at a
but
time
it's with the
when it's
intent
not war.
on it's with the no, it's with the intent that I may do this, I may have to do this. But I understand, I would, of course, it's practice. And the closer you are to war, the less practice you're gonna have doing it too. It's a few times, you're done. You're certified. You know what certification is? You went out of the plane in a parachute and you didn't break any bones and you're still alive. That's the certification.
But you
So
know,
of course I would. Of course I
yeah.
would.
But
I would.
I think
Yeah.
I think if you're willing to do it under those circumstances, why not do it for recreation too?
No, I just can't see doing that.
Exploration.
I just can't see that mentally doing
Well,
it just to do it. I would
it's
do it to protect my country and to save a lot of folks.
You
My
know what,
intent,
what
yeah.
I think, that in any
So
sport or in anything that you do, there's always some danger. There's always
yeah.
the fear of the what if.
yeah,
If you always go in the what if, you will never have taken risk, not only on just sports, in anything on life. You have to take risks. You
that's
have to
true.
get the courage
I agree
to
100%.
be different, to
Mhm.
stand out, and not to go with the crowd.
Right.
So to
Yes.
me, one of the things that I want to do is I want to do something different that I think that is a challenge and that I will be proud of what I have done. Like for instance, I learned how to ski, and I went on top of the mountains, and I could never uh, take that experience away, the feeling like you're flying, the freedom, the air in your, and
To do that, to feel
I
that.
mean, but
Yeah.
there's dangers. You could break your
Yeah.
legs, you could break a hip, you could I
Mhm.
mean, you could become paralyzed if you
Mhm.
That's true.
always think about the danger, the what if. You live in fear, so you
Yeah.
just have to make sure to stop blocking yourself to the things that you want to do, and be courageous. If you want to do
I
it, why not? I
I
mean,
agree with that. I agree with that
yeah.
because there's always somebody that's going to tell you that
Mhm.
it's too hazardous. Why risk it? There are easier ways to spend your time. In fact, a letter from a Birmingham jail, one of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s great works, was literally written while he was incarcerated for being an uppity you-know-what in Alabama. And he was chastised by pastors and activists who considered themselves his friends and colleagues and supporters. He said, Martin, why are you risking this? Why not just go along with the program? You can preach from the pulpit about equal justice and brotherhood of man. Why do you have to march and rally and demonstrate in front of all these dangerous rednecks and Klansmen who are telling you, using their preferred racial epithets, starting with N, that we're going to hang you, we're going to lynch you, we're going to burn you and your family, we're going to destroy your home. And, and his house was firebombed. And he said, we need to take it gradually, Martin. So why you want to risk everything like this? And, and his response, paraphrasing it, was that, you sometimes have to take these leaps and you have to take direct action.
Yeah.
And we're not asking for too much. We just want the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence to apply to us too. And we want, whether it's Alabama or Mississippi or Louisiana or any of these other states, whether it's in the Deep South, the states that were part of the Confederacy, or whether you're talking about the more benign forms of segregation and discrimination and institutionalized prejudice that existed in the East, the Midwest, the Great Plains, even the West Coast. Somebody's got to do something that's dangerous, that's risky, that's adventurous. You look at Gandhi. People were saying, Mahatma Gandhi, he was a lawyer.
Yeah, I know that. I remember saying that. Yeah, that surprised me.
He lived a comfortable life.
Yeah.
Representing people in court.
Yeah.
And he was a pathfinder. Because at that time,
wasn't
the British Empire.
Wasn't he in England too?
Yeah.
Yes.
He was
he
was a barrister.
Yeah, he was a barrister in England, yeah.
And so he could have lived an entire life being a privileged man, coping, he like just accept his second class status, but he could have been comfortable.
Exactly.
He said, I'm not gonna let these crazy Anglo-Saxons kill me. He could have just lived, this life, but he decided, something, it's not right. And he took off his suits and he put on his indigenous wear, and he led a movement that was ultimately successful.
Yeah.
Freeing a significant percentage of the world's population.
Yes. Yeah. That was admirable.
Yeah. India was the jewel of the British Empire.
I read a story about him that he went to England and he wanted to see if what they were preaching about the church, if he could bring that to India. And he went to the church. Obviously, he went very humble. They didn't know. And he went and he observed that the greeters at the church were giving the hands to other people and nobody greeted him. I mean, he looked so humble, the way that he looked. He went and sat down on the back road of the church, and he says that he observed that people were hugging, they were talking among each other, but nobody included him. Nobody even turned out and say hello or give him a hand or anything. And he said, wait a minute, is this the love and the unconditional love that they're preaching about? I don't want this for my country. And he returned to India, and he went and did his own, beliefs that they have and continue on. But the point is, if you're going to be speaking of something, you need to act. Actions are very important in order to move the hearts of other people and be able to make an impact, not just
Absolutely.
words, like in a lot of our a lot of churches. And I'm not just saying in even in other situations, if you don't act what you preach, then it's just words. Nothing is going to be in anybody's heart.
That's true.
Yeah.
So,
That's
but
true.
Yeah.
anyway, that
Okay.
was a
And see,
beautiful story.
Okay, Sister Morales. Okay.
and but
Yeah.
Sandra,
So
that's totally true. And
Yeah.
and in fact, and it's tragic and it's disgusting, it's deplorable, and it's something to be condemned that even in churches and houses of worship where you're
Mhm.
supposed to be welcoming people,
Mhm.
whether they're sinners or they're saints, um,
Yes.
whether they're on the road
yeah.
to redemption or whether they're still
Or
crawling
they
in the
look like
sewers.
you or not, you know.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. Yeah, because um, and in fact, that's probably where some of the worst hypocrisy happens to be.
Yes.
Where you have people behind the pulpit or you people talking about how holy they are, but they're
Mhm.
not really living it. See, and that's the
Exactly.
thing. Whether you're talking about skydiving or outer space declaration or
Yes.
civil rights or national sovereignty movements, like the Congress Party that
Mhm.
Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru were involved with. You know,
Mhm.
it's not just the pontification and oratory. It's like
Mhm.
putting what you're verbalizing into action.
Well,
You
Exactly.
know,
it's expression, if I could jump in. It's called talk the talk and walk the walk.
Mhm.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's
Mhm.
hypocritical just preaching about something or talking to something and not living what you're
Exactly.
announcing.
talk
So
is cheap.
yeah.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
um but you do have to live, like they say, you're trying to sell a dream, you have to live the dream.
Mhm.
Yes.
So yeah, you
Yeah.
gotta live the dream. So that's what we do at Raising the Cane. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Huh.
You
Hoorah.
know, in fact,
So anyway,
yeah, it's kind of like those songs about friendship where it's not just about, I know somebody's name and they wave at me. Um, but where there's really like something meaningful where you have somebody's back,
Mhm.
that is not just good times in which you're somebody's friend, where it's
periods
a
of
true relationship.
adversity. Yeah, periods of adversity, you really know who your friends are. And let's use friends as, including family too. Once, I don't want to name names, but Maurice is where when we had a family friend that got into trouble, and he always had, and he used to brag to me how he had 100 friends. And
Right.
don't mention names, Maurice. Okay, seriously. But he used to always go, "Hey, I got all these friends." And every time I was invited to a celebration or party, it would be all these people that he personally knew. It wouldn't be anybody in there he didn't know. And he said, "Wow, I guess he's real popular, year after year, years, decades. Just, hey, so and so, hey." Just constant. It's like, wow, you could be envious of that kind of connection. But those were good times. And as soon as he hit the worst time of his life, employment wise, emotionally, freedom, lost his freedom, called all these folks. And you know how I know? Because he cried to me and told me. It's like none of them will call me back. They realize, oh, he's in trouble. Can you help me, Joe? Can you help me, so and so? Can you help me? So now none of them,
Oh
none of them
yeah.
except none of them except one person. And who, pray tell, is that one person?
Right.
And I don't know how far down I was on the totem pole.
Yeah.
as far as being a friend.
Those are lessons. Those are
And
lessons.
and all those people that were always with him, hey, let's have a good time that he paid for. Let's get some drinks. Let's do this. Let's do that. They were gone.
They were
Gone.
basically
But you know what?
good time Charlies.
You know
Yeah.
what? If anything of our audience, if that happened to you, be grateful, because now you know who to trust and what is it that you don't need to do.
Right.
Normally when you have your money, keep it, invest it, make
Yeah.
it grow,
So
and
yeah, all
just have a handful, the
yeah,
ones that show you constantly
right.
that they're there with you. Because
Yeah.
that happened. I think that it must have happened to all of
It
us.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now and it's
Yeah.
very simple. This Maurice, how do you spray it? To separate the wheat from the chaff. And because what Sandra was saying, that it's the action. So if you have to reach out to someone else, whoever someone else is, all the time, and you think about it, wait a second, we only talk or get together when I call the other person.
Yeah.
That's the barometer right there. Because if they don't pick up the damn phone at Christmas, New Year's, or even special periods where you would, birthdays or whatever, that's a sign. Those are red flags right there. And it's hard to believe that no, they couldn't. I've known them 20 years. Oh yeah, you get stabbed in the back for people that know you 30 years, 10 years, 5 years, 6 months yesterday. And so
Look at
yeah, go
Julius
ahead.
Caesar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, can you come to our dinner, Caesar? We're having a special dinner in your honor. Yeah. All
Well,
your friends will be there. All your friends.
well, something. It was even more innocuous in the sense that it was an ordinary day at work
Mm-hmm.
where he's going to the Roman Senate, and his longtime friend Brutus was one of the senators that, with knife in hand, stabbed him repeatedly.
Can you imagine?
He even had dreams, beware the Ides of March. And his wife even warned him about the ominous feeling that she had.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
he dismissed it.
Wonderful friend stabbed him. I read somewhere, I forget how many stab wounds he had, but it was a whole lot, a whole lot.
Yeah, he wasn't. They weren't. There wasn't a warning. You know, it's like
Yeah.
it was.
You
He
know,
was
I
not going to
think,
walk out of there.
yeah. So, and this is a lesson to all our listeners and viewers. Be careful who you're around, and some people are just too good to be true.
Yeah,
Because all
And
of us,
follow your
yeah.
heart, like Michael is saying, there's signs in everywhere.
Oh, there's signs,
And
yeah,
what happens is that we either, because of our own wounds in our childhood, or the ones that we think we want to help and save, those are the ones that you need to leave them alone, because you're not a savior. They save themselves.
that's
Let them
right.
go, and they will return. If it's supposed to happen, they will return to you as your friend, as your significant other. But you just have to learn to let go, and that's what we
yeah,
happen to human beings. We always want what we don't have,
yeah,
and we hold on as latch. We want to keep those because we want to have control in the things that we don't have control.
That's true.
So yeah.
yeah,
That's
and
true.
yeah, and it's so
Preach,
true. What'd you say, Bert? Yeah, preach,
preach,
sister. I call her priest, Sister Morales Kane. Sister, say it,
preach.
say it, Sister
That's not true though.
Morales. And
That's not. Yeah, you're telling the truth.
Yeah.
and
And,
I was
it's so hard to see, especially I have seen in female, and our relatives that you guys know too, those females that tend to hold on into things that, that they have to let go, be themselves. Why being afraid of being alone? And they
That's
get
true.
people that is not to their advantage, or really partners. But anyway, but I'm going towards the relationships. But That's
It's
what it
okay. It's okay. We're raising a cane. You're raising it. Our goal is to
is.
raise
And you know something,
the
and we opened the door to that actually. It's
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah. So what was I gonna say with that? Oh, there's not to be spiritual or biblical, but there's the Ecclesiastics, there's a season for everything. And sometimes you could truly, to put a little asterisk on what we're saying, um, it could have just ran its course. That relationship, and that relationship is not just romantic, but friendship, acquaintanceship. And
Yeah.
you say, well, we known each other for some relationships will only last 5 months, some 5 years, some 20 years, some 10 years, some 50 years, and or death do you part. And it's a season for everything. And so don't the goal is, and this is to raise the cane and preach to you for a moment. Don't I'll never forget when someone sent through Facebook this image of this shattered glass, and it said, "Not everything needs to be put back together." That
Mm.
say,
Yes.
I wish
That's
I
good.
received that 30 years ago. Not everything needs to be put back together. Smash it, break it, get the mallet out, and crack it more. And it's like,
Yeah.
in fact, your guardian angel just did you a favor by getting you out of whatever the heck you was in crying
Yeah.
about. In
That's
fact,
true.
we thought that was a demon. No, that was the angel saying, "I'm tired of him crying over this or her crying. Let me just crack it for him.
And
Let
let,
me
and
wipe the
let me
grass."
tell you
Yeah.
something else. Even if you put the pieces together and if glue them together, guess
Not
what?
gonna
They're
work.
still not gonna be clear and
No.
beautiful. They will have the cracks.
Yeah.
They will have
Yeah.
all of that. So it's not the same.
Yeah.
That's
So
true.
this is
That's true.
so
Yeah.
some of you younger folks saying, "Oh, them older folks don't know what to talk about." Just hit us up in 5 years and let us know how it worked out.
Well, the thing about it is there's incredible ignorance amongst the young. And
Uh-oh, they're turning off right now.
I'm not turning off
Turn off shit. I was with them until then.
up to the last 5 minutes. But you can't get wise until you realize how ignorant you are. Paraphrasing
Mhm.
Socrates,
Oh, that
the
could go on a
unexamined
t-shirt.
life is not worth living.
And you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, and I think what happens today in an age of participation trophies
Mhm.
and constant affirmation for the purpose of keeping someone eternally happy because they can't really tolerate any degree of criticism, which is why you have
Yes.
very little free speech in our nation's universities and colleges, because these kids grow up in an ideological echo chamber in which, if it varies at all with what they've been taught and the propaganda that they have received, then they shut it down and they want to cancel you. And they want to do it permanently. They don't want you to have a career. They don't want you to have a family. They
And they
want
want to
you to be
destroy you.
basically
Yeah.
homeless.
Mhm.
And these are the same people who consider themselves tolerant.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the
And
irony. That's the irony.
yeah,
Yeah. See,
and I
yeah.
see them all the time. I'm not speaking theoretically. It's not like I'm talking about unicorns, mermaids, and dragons. I'm talking about people that basically are our nation's future, which is
I work for a dragon and they exist.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
terrifying.
Yes.
Um, Now there's a difference between ignorance, which
Mhm.
is characteristic of the youth, and and people who are just tyrannical, because you can sometimes deal with tyrants.
Rather not, but yeah.
You can sometimes reason with them.
Yeah.
They say, you got, 15 divisions, tanks and warplanes and aircraft carriers. I got 45. I think, can we make a deal? Because basically, that's how a lot of colonies started.
Mhm.
Yeah. You got to
So,
have something to bring to the table, though.
Yeah,
And
well,
that's a lesson too. You have to accumulate and be some level of prosperous and with intentionality. So you have something to bargain with. You have to have some chips. And that's a lesson too, to live your life where you have chips to bargain and not burn up all your bridges.
I think that's true. But what I was talking about is a
Yeah.
situation where you just can overpower somebody.
Okay.
And, and I
Yeah.
mean, how do you think empires get started? It's not like people say, I just want to be your slave. They get overpowered,
Mhm.
right? I just want
Yes,
I just want to speak your language
right.
and dress the way you do. You
I
get
think
overpowered.
that's the difference between knowledge and wisdom. With the kids or when a youth, because were young and we were stupid at some point.
Young and stupid. Young and
We thought that we knew it. I remember when my dad was a very smart individual, and I have to, I admire him for being so smart when talking to us. But at some point, I thought to myself, he doesn't understand me because he's not living what I'm living. He
Yes.
lived, in his era, which is different than mine.
Mhm.
And I think that at some point, the youth right now, my kids that, that we had, I think that they're going through that too. I just hope that because in this time that we're going through, that they have so much bombarded at the same time in the media, that their logic and wisdom is clouded to the point that they're not able to see clearly. And that's my prayer for all of the future generation and our grandkids in the future,
Mhm.
is for them to be able to have that ability to be able to discern, and to be able to analyze, not just move forward like mules, but somebody, that they will be able to analyze the history, the past, the present, and foresee what that is going to happen in the future. So to be able to have a balance, basically.
Mhm.
But how do we
Of
get there?
wisdom.
Because I think one of the problems is that the elders that ignorant youth are relying upon are themselves authoritarian propagandists for a particular isolationist and limited point of view in the world, that they're communicating um, basically the kind of world that they want, but not the kind of world which is best for people. And and in fact, teachers almost have a disproportionate degree of influence because you're spending as a child or as a teen or as a 20 something 8, 9, 10 or more hours with these instructors and the professoriate and the academic chattering classes, and they're telling you don't listen to your parents, don't listen to your preachers, don't follow your holy books, and
Mhm.
just do what we're saying.
Let me interject
And
something. I just saw this teacher that on one of the platforms, social media, that said, if I can influence your children, one, they would wear deodorant, and two, they wouldn't be on their cell phones in class. If I can
see, now
influence
that's
your
useful.
students,
Yeah,
I thought that was clever. I thought that was
yeah,
clever. They
that's
they
right.
wouldn't be
Wear
on their cell
deodorant and get off
phones.
your phone.
Yeah, if I had that kind of influence.
I will say, take the shower. I mean, if they take a shower every day, they will not need a deodorant, maybe.
Right. But they
Well,
don't they
I
don't
said
even do that. They don't even do that.
obviously the context is they're stinking, so they don't do that.
Yeah.
They that's because they want to appear authentic. And if you use soap and hot water and cologne and body wash, then you're pretending to be something other than what you are.
I thought you were one of with us,
Man,
Jake. I thought you was one of us. We're gonna have to let you go, dude.
Yeah.
Man, it's like you smell so good. You smell so good. We
You smell
cannot
too good.
tolerate this. Can't
We can't
tolerate
trust
yeah,
you.
this.
yeah,
We
Let's
can't
trust
trust
you.
you.
You're the teacher.
You sold
You're
yourself
the
out.
you're one of them.
yeah.
You're one of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
You sold yourself to the man.
Yeah. You
You
have
basically
aspirations now. Man.
you're Judas Iscariot, you know?
Damn it. Yeah, I
But
saw you put your phone away the other day. Yeah, you're dude. Instead of yeah, you were paying attention to the teacher. Okay. So
yeah.
anyway, but next subject. Let's you know what? I wanted to save it to last, but remind me NFL, Maurice. I know that's your thing, NFL. Sports is your thing. But I was talking about the youth. Let's talk about the millennial generation and current generations. The cost of everything. One issue that we're dealing with, Sandra and I, and you probably to some extent, is these young folks, the costs around the country, especially in high price ticket areas like Los Angeles, and San Diego and New York and Hawaii. We can talk about Hawaii too with the Maui fire, but as far as what are they going to do when the cost of a home starts at $300,000? That's the
wow,
if you
yeah.
factor in the medium costs around in the country, it's probably 350, 360, 360. But if you talk about California and these hotbed states, you're talking 600, $800,000.
That's
You know,
true.
and so remember how we were small, we grew up and it was attainable, you know? It was like you could see all I have to do is get regular employment, not even fantastic employment. You could afford a little bungalow, but those 600 square feet bungalows are $200,000. I mean, for a
That
Yeah.
is
600.
ridiculous.
And I was just looking in Manhattan today, the
Yeah.
price, guess how much the average cost just to rent? We're not even talking about buying to rent in Manhattan, New York, $5,600.
That's crazy.
What?
5,600 to rent an apartment.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's
Who
So
cannot?
crazy.
that's insane. 5,600. So you have 4 or 5, 8 kids living in these things to pay for it, and each one is spending $1,500 for just a bedroom, you know,
Yeah.
Man,
and a shared kitchen and bathroom. And I was thinking, God, really? What
that's
are they
that.
gonna
Yeah.
do?
Yeah,
What are they gonna do? Now,
Yeah, that's crazy.
the big scheme answer to that is the generational wealth transfer, the big transfer of wealth, which they said, I believe, is something like 71 trillion, or it was some huge amount where our generation, the baby boomers, gonna have to kick in so the next generation can survive. So the generational, they will inherit our cars, our homes, our money. First of all, we're gonna be dead, so we won't need it. So that solves that argument. Dead people don't need anything. Uh,
exactly.
now, if you
Right.
didn't make it to the happy place, some of us believe you need some water. So
Yeah.
if you don't make it to the happy place. But so that for our demise will be their savior, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
Time for living trust, which we talked about. We're gonna do one, Maurice. I know your wife is gonna do that. We need to do that to have it smooth, rather give
Yeah.
it to our kids than the strangers, right?
True.
Right, Sandra?
Yes, yes. Yeah, I worry about my kids in that respect.
Yeah.
So in the big scheme of things, beyond just our personal kids, what are the kids? The big world, wow. I mean, that's one option, obviously, is to transfer eventually, just like the DuPonts, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Vanderbilts. We need to, if you're listening to this, I hope you are, we need to operate as they do, even though we don't have $4 billion, not even 1 billion yet, half a billion, 100 million, 10 million. We need to set up ourselves where we can provide with assets, and it will transfer smoothly. So doesn't get lost in probate court and a superior court or some judge and other powers that be dictate what happens to your your fortune.
Right.
Small F, big F fortune. When I say fortune, you could be regular, but your livelihood, your assets that you accumulated. We need to set up ourselves with not to be a financial management class here, but that's the big answer right there. But not that we're trying to leave this world early so they can have a couple cars. I mean,
Well,
taking us for the last ride. Just
yeah, yeah, for sure.
getting quiet on me now, Maurice. I'm talking about death, but just an easier transfer. So, man, I know it's uncomfortable. A lot of people want to do. Okay, I'm talking about something else, but
Yeah. No, it's
okay,
serious. It's a serious, important topic.
tuned out. But in the big scheme, without us, them inheriting things, the question still stands: what are they going to do with all of this? Like I just told you, $5,600 to rent an apartment in New York, and then out here, in other areas, it's like $2,800 for 2 bedroom to rent. And if you want to buy, again, that's a quarter, not even a quarter of a million. That's a third to 40%. God, my God, 3, 4, 500,000.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Well, there are solutions, but it requires a different mindset that it currently exists.
So they have fewer opportunities or chances of doing the right thing and making right decisions. In our generation, we could have made 5, 6, 8 mistakes and still recover and still be in the game. If they if they make that many now, they may be just screwed.
Well, see, I think we benefited from a culture and society that was in many ways wiser.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at our forebears, and some of them were considered the greatest generation, to use the nomenclature of Tom Brokaw about the adults who lived during World War II. They were tougher, they were stronger, they were more resilient, they were God-fearing men and women. They believed in propriety and etiquette and manners. They believed in civilization. They didn't believe in rioting. They didn't believe in torching buildings. They didn't believe in defunding the law enforcement apparatus. They believed in limitations and boundaries. And I think that people don't have fundamental respect for persons or property. They don't fear the afterlife because they don't believe in it. They don't regard anyone different than themselves philosophically, ideologically, or politically as having any value and worthiness to speak and express themselves and to live in a different way. It's an intolerant generation that doesn't look like barbarians on the surface because they're not wearing chainmail and furs, partly because in this age of PETA, that's frowned upon. But they're barbarians nevertheless, the kind that brought down the Roman Empire, the kind that doesn't respect anything. And it fills me with a certain sorrow and um, pessimism, because they need a strong hand. And I think that's why many countries right now are gravitating towards a form of authoritarianism. You look at the military coup d'etat that occurred recently in Niger.
Yeah, I
Oh,
a
saw
former
that.
French colony.
Right, I saw that. Yeah.
And the the chief of staff was about to be fired by the democratically elected president, and so he got the drop on him and threw him into protective custody and established a military government. And ECOWAS, which is the Economic Community of West African states, basically their equivalent to the European Union, threatened last week that if the president was not returned to office, that there would be a military intervention. And the Sunday was the deadline. Well, that came and went. I didn't believe it when I heard it. And obviously the military regime, the junta, didn't believe it either.
wow.
And our president, bless his heart, he's threatening sanctions. And uh, you know, and Mali and Burkina Faso, which had replaced their governments recently, said that if anybody invades Niger, then they'll back Niger militarily. So it and the reason for it is because the the troops that were being trained by France and the United States, in fact, there's currently 1,100 American soldiers there,
Wow.
were trying to help them against the jihadists, um, you know, who breed like roaches. They're everywhere. And so they want a strong hand. See how I'm tying this together?
Mhm.
Mhm.
But they're not achieving that kind of balance that used to exist, where you could have a representative democratic system and you could have a strong sense of law and order and a regard for national security. Because maybe you can't have it all in a perfect utopian way, but you can have a certain amount of, you know, and see that's why we kind of go, it's like a metronome where you go from one side to another. You
Mhm.
know, it's total anarchy on the other on one side, and there's a police state on the other. And you know, you got to have something that's kind of the right point. It may not be intermediate, it may not be the exact middle, but you got enough democracy and you got enough security where law-abiding people can live their lives without fear of murderers,
Exactly.
rapists, terrorists, you know. I
Yeah.
mean, we're only 25 years removed from Al Qaeda killing 224 people in the bombings of the US embassies in Kenya and Tanzania during the Clinton
Oh,
administration.
yeah.
That was kind of a dry run for
Mhm.
9/11.
Mhm.
And what did we do in response to that? We didn't do SHIT, you know. And so you let people come in and take flying lessons. And they tell the flight instructor in Florida, oh, we don't need to learn how to land. And the flying instructor calls the FBI and they say, well, what do you want us to do about it? You know, and then after 9/11, everybody said, oh, we should have seen it coming. And I said, damn right you should have. You know, we're not
Yeah.
led by wise men.
Yeah.
We'd almost be
Yeah.
better in a Barbie world, you know, people dressed in pink and dancing and, you know, just smiling all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
But in a
hey.
reality, we live in an Oppenheimer world.
Yeah. So
Where dangerous men exist and you have to be ready to oppose them.
so that's it. Well, we're coming up against the end of our wonderful show. This is
But
not to
wait.
ignite. This is not to ignite you, Maurice, to talk another 6 minutes uninterrupted.
No, I wanted
To remind him, huh?
there's a movie coming out that I wanted to talk about briefly.
Please go quick.
Distributed by Universal Pictures
Okay.
and
Tell us.
directed by Andre Overdahl. Screenwriters are Bragi F. Shute, Zach Olkowitz, and Bram Stoker. So that gives you a clue what this movie is about.
Dracula, Bram Stoker.
Really?
Yeah.
Dracula.
Yeah. It's coming out August the 11th, The Last Voyage of the Demeter.
Wow.
And it's based on one chapter of the Irish Gothic author Bram Stoker's 1897 novel that we all know and love, Dracula, which has been adapted into movies, TV shows, musicals, tribute books, and so on. And the movie, The Last Voyage of the Demeter, is based upon a chapter in Dracula called The Captain's Log.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, this is the part that's often not in most of the Dracula movies, but it's the transition from where the Count travels from his ancestral castle in Transylvania, which is part of modern Romania, to England, London specifically.
Wow.
And in the novel, this ship arrives at port, and there's nobody alive on board. And so the outcome is already preordained in this film. And it's kind of like a movie about the Alamo. You kind of know how it's going to end.
Yeah. Everyone dies at the end.
Everybody dies.
Everybody.
Except General Santa Anna, of course, and his men. But it stars Corey Hawkins, Aisling Franiosi, and Liam Cunningham. Dracula is portrayed by Javier Botet, who was born in Ciudad Real in Spain on July 30th, 1977. And he was previously seen in The Conjuring 2 in 2016, The Mummy 2017, It 2017, and Amigo in 2019. So I want to see it.
Wow. Wow.
When does it come out? When does it come out?
Friday, August 11th.
Oh, that's
2023.
Tomorrow. That's tomorrow.
That's
tomorrow.
Right. Yeah.
They're oriented as to time and space. That's good.
Okay. So anyway, it's been wonderful, and we'll catch up on the next show as far as topics not discussed today. We just got so much to raise.
So much.
Yes.
So much.
How much? So much. How much?
So much.
So much.
So much. And and rest in peace to the 53 dead in Maui, principally in the town of Lahaina, beautiful tourist village that we had the privilege to visit years ago.
Me too.
Yes.
Okay.
Our hearts are
with the area,
with the Mauians and with the rest of the Hawaiian folks who are part of our great country.
Grace. Hallelujah.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's it. Well, thank you, Sandra and Maurice, and thank you, Michael. Anyway,
thank you, Michael.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Until next time, listen to and watch us. Please subscribe to our channels, YouTube and all iHeartRadio, Spotify, etc. Please share with your family and friends.
Subscribe.
Okay. Subscribe.
What's the name of the show again?
Raising
the Cane.